Hello, hockey fans. Austin here, and welcome to the day after discussion of the Oilers' 4-3 loss to the Florida Panthers last night in Game 3. The Oilers are now in an 0-3 deficit. Pretty much insurmountable at this point to come back in the series, but, I mean, you never know, right? You've got to win 4 games to win the Stanley Cup here. So Florida, they have one more win that they need. The Oilers would have to rattle off 4 straight. And if you're like a super crazy optimist, you can go, hey, you know what? Edmonton won 16 games in a row earlier this season. I'm sure they can win 4 in a row. The realist in me is like, I don't think so. The Florida Panthers right now, that's a team that I think is just destined to win the Stanley Cup. It's a team that has outplayed the Edmonton Oilers for the most part throughout this series. The Oilers have had good stretches. I find the Oilers have had good 10, 15, 20-minute stretches, but, you know, when push comes to shove, goaltending, defense, and getting some timely goal scoring, Florida, they're just at another level right now, and this is what happened last year when Florida played Vegas. Florida, they were dealing with injuries. The Vegas Golden Knights, they were just on a crazy run that they couldn't be stopped. The fact Edmonton even beat Vegas twice last year is actually impressive, considering how much they dismantled the Florida Panthers in the finals. Last year, I didn't think the finals would be in a 5-game series. I thought Florida could win at least a couple. It didn't end up happening, and I think there's a lot of people that feel the same way this year. I think a lot of people don't expect Florida or didn't expect Florida to be able to possibly sweep Edmonton in the Stanley Cup Finals. I don't think there's been a sweep in the Cup Finals since 1996, and the last Canadian team to get swept in the Stanley Cup Finals was actually the Edmonton Oilers in 1983, so that's a little fun fact. Not so fun if you're an Oilers fan. But for Panthers fans, you got to be happy right now. You got to be really excited. I've talked to a lot of Panthers fans, and there's a lot of humbleness going on here. A lot of you fans have been very humble. A lot of Panthers fans are being like, "Hey, this series isn't over yet. It's not over yet. I'm not going to get excited until there's 10 seconds left. In whatever game they end up winning to win the Stanley Cup, and the team is up by 5 goals." And I love that. I love that for Panthers fans. I'm excited for Panthers fans. Listen, I know this channel is mostly Oilers, but I am a hockey fan first. And in 2019, when St. Louis took out the Boston Bruins, as a lot of you know, the Boston Bruins are my second favorite team. I've been cheering for the Bruins since 2003, the Oilers since 1997. When St. Louis won their cup in 2019, was it painful as a Bruins fan? Yes. But at the same time, the St. Louis Blues winning their first Stanley Cup in franchise history, I love the history of it. I love the storylines. I love seeing players hoist the Stanley Cup. And if Florida ends up hoisting the Stanley Cup on Saturday in Edmonton, I am going to be the first person to congratulate them, giving handshakes through the webcam to Panthers fans and hockey fans in general. As a hockey fan, this is the best time of the year. Obviously, I want my team to win. I want the Oilers to win. I've wanted this so badly. I've wanted the Oilers to win so badly. I cried on stream when they made the Stanley Cup Final, and now Edmonton is on the verge of being swept. And you know what? At the end of the day, it happens. That's hockey. But we do have a lot to discuss in this video today. I talked a lot about some of the things I'm going to discuss today in last night's video. I will have everything time-stamped. I'll try and keep this as brief as possible. These day after discussions, the last one I did was like 40 minutes long, but that's just because there was a lot to discuss in terms of the physicality and the dirty plays that happened in Game 2. But I'm going to try and streamline this one just a little bit better and keep it nice and short and sweet. And, well, short as in like maybe 20, 25 minutes. Like I said, I'll have everything time-stamped. If you like these videos and you want to see more, make sure you hit that like button. And if you end up really liking the video today, make sure you hit subscribe. When the Stanley Cup does get awarded, the content on this channel does not end. I have plans for tons of content this summer. There will be regular videos from me throughout the summer. I'm excited for that as well. But until we get there, I'm not going to try and give away too much. Now, in today's day after discussion, Oilers-Panthers Game 3 recap. Florida leads the series 3-0. Florida won 4-3 last night. All the numbers at the bottom of the screen are some of the advanced metrics from Natural Stat Trick in all situations last night. Those are the Oilers stats in the purple. So the Oilers' expected goals for percentage was actually below 50%, 47.60%. Florida's expected goals last night was 4.1. So they ended up with 4 goals. The Oilers' expected goals was about I think it was like 3.7 or something. So you know what? A lot of Oilers fans sitting there going, you know what? The Oilers, they deserved the win last night, all this stuff. Well, Florida, they are opportunistic. They capitalize on mistakes in that second period. It was really funny in the second period. Sportsnet put up a graphic before the start of the third. Florida had 54 seconds of offensive zone time in the second period, and they scored 3 goals. That's efficiency, my friends. That is uber efficiency. So as an Oilers fan, obviously you don't want to see that, but it's kind of funny. I was laughing on the stream last night when they showed the graphic. I couldn't believe it. Corsi 4, 57.80%. High danger Corsi 4, 54.50%. And scoring chances. The Oilers had 68% of the scoring chances. However, when it came to the high danger chances, pretty even throughout the game. Now, our topics for today on the right side of the screen: anticlimactic, ? The big guns, referring to Draisaitl, McDavid, Hyman, Nugent-Hopkins, and Evan Bouchard. The power play. Again, big guns and power play can kind of be condensed into one topic, probably. Stuart Skinner. I've seen a lot of discourse around Stuart Skinner, and there's a lot of vitriol towards him, so I do want to talk about him a little bit. Ken Holland, obviously, this is the roster that he's put together, and I have a few things I want to discuss about him. Just win one. I'll discuss, the Oilers, if they can win a game, what it means to win at least one game, and try and find a way to grab some kind of momentum right now. Then I'll have my closing thoughts and a thank you at the end of the video. So, first topic, anticlimactic ? Is this Stanley Cup Final anticlimactic? I've seen a lot of people commenting online. They're like, this is the most boring Stanley Cup Final I've ever seen. It's not even close, blah, blah, blah. Well, I mean, I think it is close. It's just you have one goaltender who's just playing like prime Dominik Hasek right now. And to me, that's exciting. I think the way Florida plays in the neutral zone, a lot of people consider that boring. I like the way Florida plays. They're aggressive. They're tough. They make your life miserable when you have the puck, and they attack in waves. It's interesting when the Oilers have the puck in the defensive zone. I got mad last night. I'm like, why can't they just move the puck, just make a pass? It always feels like Florida has like 9 or 10 players on the ice. The way they attack in waves and how uncomfortable they make the Edmonton defenders from being able to just make a clean 5-foot pass either to a defense partner or getting the puck up the boards to a winger. And that is a huge credit to how the Florida Panthers play the game of hockey. Paul Maurice, there was a lot of discourse around him, especially last summer after Florida lost in 5 to the Vegas Golden Knights, if he was overrated as a head coach, if Florida should fire him. And no, Paul Maurice, he's one of the best coaches out there. I've liked Paul Maurice a lot over his career. I mean, I've watched him since he was with the Hurricanes, and then he went to Winnipeg. He's with Florida now. Paul Maurice is a good coach, and he is a quote machine, by the way. If you haven't really heard what he says in post-game or pre-game interviews with the media, he is hilarious. One of the funniest personalities out there. You wouldn't know just from how like straight-faced he is all the time. He's one of the most sarcastic, funny, intelligent coaches in the entire NHL. And I think after that loss against Vegas last year in 5 games, he made some adjustments to Florida's tactics, and the team is 100% bought in, and there's a huge credit to go along with that. And there's fans, if Edmonton does get swept, if it ends up being a 4-0 sweep, there's going to be a lot of fans be like, this Stanley Cup Final was boring. The Oilers didn't even make it interesting. Did they even deserve to be there? Yes, the Oilers deserve to be there. You don't luck your way to a Stanley Cup Final. Are some roads a little bit easier than others? Yes, but at the end of the day, if you're one of the final 2 teams standing, you deserve to be there, right? That's just how it is. Hockey is one of the toughest sports out there. You have to, like, the gauntlet to even get to the Stanley Cup Final is the toughest in most pro sports, in my personal opinion, and I don't think that this has been an anticlimactic Stanley Cup Final. If you're an Oilers fan, maybe, or if you're a neutral fan, if you don't really care about Florida or Edmonton and you just want to see a Stanley Cup Final go more than 4 games, yes, I understand seeing the anticlimactic nature of it. But the actual on-ice hockey has been great to watch. It's been tough. It's been fast. Good goaltending from Florida. Opportunistic goal scoring from the Panthers. And when Florida gets on their forecheck, too, they are just an absolute menace to try and deal with. The Oilers they're not there. The Oilers just aren't there right now. They're not at that level that they need. They don't have the pieces in place to be able to handle what Florida does. And Chris Knoblauch, earlier in the series, I said you can tell he's a rookie head coach. It was after game 1. And I got kind of blasted for that. The Spit and Chicklets guys mentioned that tweet. I had other people bring up that tweet and talk about it from the media. And I didn't mean that in like Chris Knoblauch, doesn't deserve to be there. He doesn't deserve to be a head coach in the NHL in the Stanley Cup Final. All I meant was some of the decisions that Chris Knoblauch made, I think if he had some more experience under his belt, he wouldn't have made those decisions before game one, those specific lineup decisions. The Oilers had won 3 straight games against the Dallas Stars with a specific lineup. And then before game one against Florida, he completely went back to what didn't work previously in the postseason. He's put Nurse and Cece back together in game one for what God knows what reason. We'll never know, really. He put Foegele back in the lineup after he was scratched for 3 games. And again, Warren Foegele hasn't been an issue for the most part. Warren Foegele is an aggressive, fast skater. He can get in on the forecheck. But it was just the amount of lineup changes that Chris Knoblauch made before game one. The Oilers aren't losing the series because of game one, but, just trying to keep things on track here. Knoblauch versus Maurice, you can tell there's quite the difference in experience between these two head coaches. Chris Knoblauch, no matter how the series plays out, he's going to be better off for it. Chris Knoblauch having a full off season to, adjust tactics, talk to whoever the new general manager is going to be. Chris Knoblauch's one of the smartest people in the entire league, in my opinion. The way he conducts himself, his ability to adjust in game has been really admirable. The fact that the Oilers were dead last when he took over, they were like second last, I think, and the team went on that huge run. They went on a 16-game win streak at one point. You don't just accidentally do things like that. Chris Knoblauch, long-term, is a real good fit for the Edmonton Oilers, especially for guys like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. A lot of fans think that those two are going to leave. I really don't think those two are going to leave. I think they're going to re-sign. I don't think they're going to sign long-term 8-year max contracts. I think they're going to sign more shorter-term deals just because, now that they've made the Stanley Cup Final, they had a conference final appearance 2 years ago, a Stanley Cup Final appearance this year. You can sell the players that, hey, like, look how close we are, couple pieces here and there. We're going to be right back in it. And I would agree with that. I think Chris Knoblauch is a coach that can get this team back to this position in the future. So when you look at the anticlimactic nature of this series, I don't think so. I think no matter how this series ends, whether Florida ends up sweeping or wins in 5 or however it ends up going, I think it's been a great series. I think it's been fun to watch. And I just love watching the way Florida plays. Oilers fans aren't going to like that, and I'm sorry, but I admire the Florida Panthers a ton. They are a team that I'm very envious of. There are players on Florida that I really, truly despise. Like, just with a fiery passion, I despise. But there's nothing I can do as a fan about it. I can whine, bitch, and complain on social media, which I do quite regularly. If you follow me on Twitter or X.com, I come across as fairly negative on X or Twitter.com. But Twitter is just so angry. Twitter is just always so mad about everything. Doesn't matter what's going on. Twitter is mad about something. I put out a tweet last night being like, hey, the Oilers deserve to be in the Stanley Cup Final, but the Florida Panthers deserve the Stanley Cup. No matter what happens, I'm supporting my team. And I put like 2 little heart symbols. And the amount of vitriol that I got from a tweet like that, it's like, I'm just being positive and nice. And the amount of people that just absolutely shit on you all the time. It's so funny. This has been a learning experience for me as a content creator. I didn't start creating content until November of this season. I wasn't even creating content at the start of the year. I didn't start making content until the Oilers fired Jay Woodcroft. And a lot of learning experience for me too here. At the end of the day, I think this Stanley Cup Final has been fine. I think it's been exciting enough. Obviously, there are some Stanley Cup Finals that are much better than others. But at the end of the day, the better team always deserves to win the Stanley Cup. The team that ends up winning the Stanley Cup, they end up truly deserving it. There are no mistakes in hockey when it comes to this sort of thing. There's no accidents. Sometimes teams make the playoffs that maybe didn't deserve to be there. No, I'm sorry, Capitals and Islanders fans. I don't mean to just suddenly throw a bullet towards your direction. But, this year you had 2 teams with crazy negative goal differential make the Stanley Cup playoffs, the Washington Capitals. And, of course, that's anticlimactic. They make the postseason. They play the Rangers in round 1. They get swept. That, to me, is anticlimactic. Getting swept in the Stanley Cup Final, it's a little bit different. Of course, fans want to see the series go 6 or 7 games. At the end of the day, though, if Florida takes this thing in 4, they take it in 4. It happens. I'm going to segue into the next topic here, the big guns, the Oilers' top players here. We have Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and Evan Bouchard. They are the 5 most prominent offensive producers throughout the postseason, and they have a combined 0 goals in the Stanley Cup Final. And what a time for those 5 players. I called them the unofficial Russian 5. I guess Ekholm was in there. You can take like Nugent Hopkins out there. But either way, you know what I'm saying. There are 5 players on the Edmonton Oilers that, for the most part, produce most of the offense on this team. They have throughout the entire postseason, and this is the absolute worst time of the year to suddenly go cold. None of them have a goal. Nugent Hopkins, I think, has like 2 shots on net the entire series, or 3 shots total. Draisaitl, he's getting some looks, but his shot looks really off. I don't know if Draisaitl's hand is busted up right now or if he just sucks. I don't mean that literally. Obviously, he doesn't suck. Leon Draisaitl, fun fact, he has not gone 3 straight games without a point, let alone a goal. He hasn't gone 3 straight games without a point since, I believe, 2021 or something. I can't remember what the stat was. I saw it last night on Twitter. I think it's been 3 years since he's gone at least 3 straight games without a single point. Doesn't matter if it's the playoffs or the regular season. Leon Draisaitl, he mentioned it in an interview last night. He prides himself on playoff production. He has been one of the most consistent playoff performers in the Oilers' history, dating all the way back to 2017 when he had his coming out party. That's when he really broke into superstar status, in my opinion. And he said it last night. He said he just can't get anything going right now. And when we talk about the big guns on Edmonton, we also have to give credit to the Florida Panthers and not only the style of defense they play, but certain players that are given the task of shutting them down. And Sasha Barkov, or Alexander Barkov, he is unbelievable. He's one of the best two-way players in the entire league. He deserves all the credit in the world right now for his ability to, shut things down when they need to shut things down. And there's going to be fans from Edmonton be like, oh, well, Barkov, he just slashes you in the wrist and he gets away with hooks and blah, blah, blah. Listen, you know how many slashes and hooks and cross checks and things I've seen in the Stanley Cup Final that Oilers have gotten away with? No, that's not entirely the reason why Edmonton's top guys are not producing. They're not producing because Barkov does more than just slash a guy in the wrist, which I don't think he actually does that often. Fans, it's pretty easy to take one specific clip and then run with that, be like, oh, that's not good defense. He's just getting away with whatever. No, that's not what's going on here. There were a few plays last night where McDavid and Draisaitl, they're out there, they're getting a ton of zone time pressure, and then they try and make that pass to an open guy, and you think that player for the Oilers is open, and all of a sudden Barkov's stick is in the lane, intercepts it, goes the other way for a scoring chance for the Florida Panthers. It's just, it's textbook. It's textbook how Barkov plays. And as a Bruins fan that watched Patrice Bergeron his entire career, I actually started cheering for the Bruins because of Patrice Bergeron. When the team drafted him, that's when I became a Bruins fan. Loved Patrice Bergeron. I have a ton of respect for how Barkov plays the game. I thought Bergeron, one of the best two-way players of all time in NHL history. Barkov, he's right up there too. The way Barkov plays, the way he conducts himself, and the way he can shut down opponents' top lines. And there's Oilers fans that are really mad that the Oilers' top guns are unable to produce right now. But if you go back and look at the Florida Panthers series against the Rangers, the Bruins, and the Lightning, their top guys couldn't get it done either. Like Panarin had 1 goal in that Rangers series, and it was a 6-on-5 goal. It was with the net pulled, I believe. You go into the Bruins series, David Pastrnak, I don't think he had a single goal in that series. So this is not just a one-off. This is not just a series where suddenly the Florida Panthers are able to shut down top players in the league. No, they've been doing this since round 1 against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Stamkos, pretty, and Kucherov, pretty ineffective against the Florida Panthers in round 1. So, the Florida Panthers, Sasha Barkov, Tkachuk, Lundell, Luostarinen, Reinhart, like these guys are so good away from the puck. They're so good away from the puck. And if you're the Edmonton Oilers and if you end up losing this series, and if it ends up being a sweep, however it ends up playing out, the Oilers, it's unlikely that they come back and win the series. If I'm the Edmonton Oilers, and if I'm a player on the Oilers, you got to be watching video of this Panthers team all summer to figure out and learn what it takes to actually win and shut players down and play disciplined, structured hockey. Far too often, I see Oilers players blow the zone, blow coverage, don't commit to the back check. The 4-on-4 goal for the Florida Panthers last night was a masterclass in McDavid and Draisaitl just not committing properly to that back check. They're thinking offense too much. The Florida Panthers, they've been here. They've learned that you can't just do that. When Florida makes a mistake, they are so fast. And you can tell when Florida makes a mistake because of, the energy that they use to assert and get themselves back into a position to defend. When the Oilers make a mistake with the puck, It's like they're lollygagging. It's like they're just, well, we trust our defense. Our defense is going to get this, and they're going to get the puck right back up to us, and we're going to go in and score. No, you get back on the back check, man. So talking about the big guns, I'm not talking about just not producing offense. I'm also talking about their commitment to defense as well. The Florida Panthers are exposing them. They're exposing them heavily, and this is an opportunity for Edmonton to really pay attention and realize what it takes to win in the NHL. Because right now for Edmonton and their top players, it ain't good enough. It ain't good enough, and for the Florida Panthers, they've just been better, and they deserve to be in this position right now. And speaking of the big guns, let's discuss the power play a little bit for the Edmonton Oilers. The Florida Panthers coming into the series, we all knew how good the Florida Panthers penalty kill was. It was second only to the Edmonton Oilers, and the Oilers last night, they once again went 0 for 3. So 0 for 3 in Game 3, 0 for 4 in Game 2, and then I believe they went 0 for 3 in Game 1. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember how many power plays Edmonton had in Game 1. Either way, the Oilers had opportunities to not only get a lead in this game, but also get themselves back into the game with the power play, and they were unable to do so. This power play has run dry at the worst time. However, in saying that, this is not just the Oilers being unable to finish. This is Sergei Bobrovsky making big saves. This is the Florida Panthers penalty kill playing aggressively and sticks in the lane and not allowing Edmonton to get a proper look. And when the Oilers do get their look, there was a power play last night where they were finally able to get that cross-ice pass to Draisaitl for the one-timer in his office on that right circle, bottom of the right circle. Bobrovsky, he reads it the whole way, and he's there before the puck gets there. The puck gets him. It's a huge save for Bobrovsky, and you can argue that maybe Draisaitl didn't get all that shot. Even if he did, that puck is not going in. Bobrovsky, his ability to see the ice, scan the ice, know where the puck is, and not get beat on plays like that, it's been instrumental in Florida's success. Florida's been doing that all playoffs long against some of the best power plays in the entire league, and you can see why they are where they are in this position. If Edmonton, of course, we can look at the power play, and if Edmonton even scores one power play goal last night, just one, it's a tie game, you might have got overtime. Who knows how that plays out, right? That's how important the power play has been to the Edmonton Oilers. But a lot of fans, especially from other teams, they've been saying it for a long time, you need to be more than just a power play. And for the most part, the Oilers do play very well 5-on-5, but when the 5-on-5 goals aren't there, you need that power play to be a difference maker. It has not been able to be a difference maker, and tons of credit to the Florida Panthers here. The way they penalty kill, sticks in the lanes, and when there is a breakdown, Sergei Bobrovsky, he just knows where the puck is. There were numerous moments last night where I didn't know where the puck was going, but it's like Bobrovsky was already in position to make the save. And I'm just like, I don't understand how this guy has that reaction time. Couldn't imagine being a goal in the NHL. Like, that's just wild to me. Sergei Bobrovsky, this is one of the best goaltending performances I've ever seen. And I watched Tim Thomas in 2011. We watched Jonathan Quick in 2012 and 2014. We've seen Vasilevsky in their cup runs for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Like, we've seen some unbelievable goaltending performances in NHL in the playoffs. This ranks right up there. This ranks right up there as maybe one of the best I've seen a goaltender have in a Stanley Cup Final. Sergei Bobrovsky, I think he's the Conn Smythe runner-up. He's like the Conn Smythe leader right now. If Florida were to win the Cup, he's the one that would get my vote, in my personal opinion. I could see the votes for Barkov just because of his 2A game, shutting down the opponent's top stars throughout the entire postseason. But Sergei Bobrovsky, we're witnessing something truly special and historic here. And Bobrovsky, he's about to cement his Hockey Hall of Fame first ballot resume here. He has 2 Vezinas. He has other hardware. And if he were to win a Stanley Cup and a Conn Smythe, I mean, that's a first ballot Hall of Famer. For all the talk about Bobrovsky's contract when that was signed a few years ago, $10 million a year, fans could not believe it. And I couldn't believe it. And, he's had his ups and downs. And this is why you don't give up on goaltending, I don't think. And I'm going to, allow that to segue into the Stuart Skinner topic. Speaking of goaltending that you don't want to give up on, I see a lot of Oilers fans today, and I get it at Oilers fans. I posted on Twitter last night as well. That second goal for Florida, that was a backbreaker. That was an absolute backbreaker that took momentum away. It swung it in the Florida Panthers' favor after the Oilers were controlling play in the second period until that second goal for Florida. The Oilers, Warren Fogle tied it early on a breakaway. And the Oilers just were attacking wave after wave. Bobrovsky was forced to come up huge numerous times with saves. And then Skinner, the puck finally comes to the Oilers' end. He comes out of his net to play it. He misreads it. Puck comes out in front. Tarasenko, wide open net, scores. That was an absolute backbreaker. And then, of course, Florida, they score 2 more goals. They go up 4-1 at that point. Makes the lead insurmountable to come back from. The Oilers with a valiant effort in the third period. And I see a lot of fans right now going after Stuart Skinner. But this isn't entirely on Skinner. Yes, you want more saves, but at the end of the day, the Oilers have scored 4 goals in the Stanley Cup Finals. The Florida Panthers have scored 11 goals in 3 games. And if, I see fans are like, well, Skinner in the Cup Finals, he's at like a negative 2.5 goals saved above expected, which means he saved 2.5 goals less than expected, is how I should have worded that. Okay, if you take that away from Florida, well, they're still outscoring the Oilers 9-4 in the series. Even if you were to be very kind and say, well, let's, pretend Stuart Skinner has saved 3 goals above expected. Well, okay, you're still being outscored 8-4. Like, at that point, it doesn't matter. The offense hasn't been clicking enough. And do you want a save here and there? Of course you do. Stuart Skinner's 25 years old. Stuart Skinner was put into the starter's position when it was supposed to be Jack Campbell. He did not ask to be the starter. He was forced into this position because Ken Holland gave $25 million to an unproven, shaky starting goaltender coming out of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I don't dislike Jack Campbell either, but the reality of the situation is they gave money to a guy that they thought could be their starter. He ended up being unplayable pretty much right away. Stuart Skinner was forced to take the mantle as a rookie last year. This is Stuart Skinner's second year in the NHL. He hasn't even played 2 full years in the NHL. Like, this is a guy who has shown flashes of brilliance. We saw that during the 16-game win streak. We've seen it in games in the postseason. Game 6 and 7 against Vancouver. Game 1, game 4, 5, and 6 against Dallas. Like, Stuart Skinner, he's played game, was it 4 against the LA Kings as well? He's shown how good of a goaltender he can be. But he's also shown how young and inexperienced he is. And for a lot of goaltenders, it's hard to just ask them to come into this situation. For a guy like Stuart Skinner, his age and his experience, this is just a crazy... We should be focusing the anger towards the guy that caused this to happen, which is Ken Holland. Stuart Skinner did not ask to be in this position. He's been put into this position, which means the scrutiny and the limelight is on Stuart Skinner at all times. And I get it. And is there criticism that's deserved on Skinner's play? Of course there is. But you don't lose a team doesn't lose the Stanley Cup because of one thing that's going on in their lineup. Defensively, they have not been good enough. Look at some of the breakdowns the Oilers have had in this series. Look at game 1, look at game 2 especially, and then look at last night. Some of the play. Look at Darnell Nurse's just horrific play. A little shovel on his backhand, coughs the puck up in his own zone. You have players flying the zone. There's nobody helping out on the back check. If you are an Edmonton Oiler and you know Skinner is prone to these shaky performances, wouldn't you think that everyone would be committed to trying to limit the amount of danger against Skinner? Like, this falls on the players as much as it falls on Skinner, as much as it falls on Ken Holland for not getting Skinner someone that can push him a little bit. Like Calvin Pickard, obviously, he was good enough as the backup. I like Calvin Pickard a lot. Calvin Pickard was thrust into the second round against the Vancouver Canucks. He played game 4 and 5. He won game 4, and he played good enough to win game 5, but the Oilers, in the end, ended up losing. This is a situation where if you're putting all the blame on Stuart Skinner, you're losing sight of how teams win and lose. You're losing sight of the people who construct the roster. Now, as a fan, obviously, Skinner's the guy. We want him to succeed, and it's unfortunate, but just like last year, this is another learning experience. Teams go through this. Teams very rarely just suddenly go on a run to the Stanley Cup Final and win the whole thing in their first try. It is so rare. It just doesn't happen often. Tampa Bay, they lost in 2015. They retooled on the fly. A lot of the core pieces from that 2015 team were part of their recent little mini dynasty, I'll call them. Vegas Golden Knights, first year in the NHL, 2018. They go all the way to the Cup Final, and they lost that Vegas team, by the way, which seemed like a team of destiny. They just could not lose all year. They lost in 5 games in the Stanley Cup Final because that's how hard it is to win. The Washington Capitals, you can say, well, that was the first time they were in the Cup Finals in the Ovi era. You know how many times they lost to the Pittsburgh Penguins? Do you know how many times they lost to the Pittsburgh Penguins before they finally beat them? That was a situation where if, Pittsburgh finally lost, Washington finally got over that Pittsburgh Penguins situation, whether it's round 1 or 2. And at that point, Washington was like, this is our cup to lose now. We've gotten over that demon. And I guess the one team you can look at as maybe being that team that went to the Cup Final for the first time and then, lost, was the Boston Bruins in 2011. There wasn't a lot of Stanley Cup Final history with that core group, but they, 2010, they lost in 3 straight, or not in 3 straight. They had a 3-0 series lead against the Philadelphia Flyers in the second round in 2010. Philly came back, won 4 straight, reverse swept the Boston Bruins at the time. I think that was the 4th team that had ever done it. Boston 2011, they play Philly again in the second round. The Boston Bruins, they swept the Philadelphia Flyers. I'm just bringing up examples of teams that had to learn to get through a specific part of adversity of their franchise to make it to that next step. And for the Edmonton Oilers, last year against Vegas, they lost in the second round, and Vegas ended up winning the Cup. 2022, they lost in the conference finals to the Colorado Avalanche. Colorado ended up winning the Cup that year. This year, they might get swept by the Florida Panthers. Yeah, it hasn't happened yet, but they might. And Florida will be the eventual Cup winner, obviously, because it's a Cup Finals. Teams go through this. Pittsburgh, 08, Crosby, Pittsburgh, they lose in 08 to Detroit. 09, they come back, they beat Detroit for the Stanley Cup. So this is part of the storylines. This is part of how teams grow. This is hockey. This is hockey. This is how it is. You have teams that can go on miracle runs. I'm not saying it's not possible, but the Oilers, they're this close. They are this close, just like Tampa was this close last year. What the Oilers need to do is just make sure they get the right general manager hire this summer. They need to get the right guy or girl and someone with an ability to draft, someone with an ability to understand how the cap works so that if you need to take advantage of it, wink, wink, like Vegas does, please do that. And they need a general manager that will be able to maximize whatever time Draisaitl and McDavid have left. If it's 1 year, if it's 5 years, it remains to be seen. That's their job. And Ken Holland, at the end of the day, he has not done a good enough job of surrounding McDavid and Draisaitl with the talent and the depth and the defense and the goaltending needed to win a Stanley Cup. Skinner will be good enough one day. He's not good enough right now. He will be good enough one day. And for the rest of the team, the depth situation, defensively especially, Nurse and Ceci in the top 4 is not good enough. Stanley Cup contending teams would not have Nurse or Ceci in their top 4. Nurse and Ceci would be a third pair at best on most Cup contending teams, in my opinion. So they have to figure something out here. Ken Holland, he's done an admirable job at acquiring good, solid, strong pieces that have almost got the Oilers to that Stanley Cup. But at the end of the day, his inability to draft, none of his draft picks have made a significant impact since he took over the team. Nobody asked for the pandemic in 2020 to flatten the salary cap. Nobody asked for this stuff. I get that. And being a general manager, I can't imagine how hard it is. At the end of the day, though, Ken Holland just didn't do enough. This year, his all-in year was Adam Henrique, Sam Carrick, and Troy Stetcher. Gave up a first rounder, I think a third rounder or something. And that's not to disrespect Henrique. He just doesn't move the needle offensively that I think the team would need right now. The Oilers, they need scoring depth on right wing, and they need defensive help in the top 4. They need someone that can play with Nurse, and then, maybe even an extra body here and there for defense as well. And they did need, as painful as it is to admit it, I was wrong. I didn't think they needed a goaltender at the deadline. Maybe they needed to pick up a goaltender as well. But that's pretty much my thoughts on the Skinner-Holland situation. The Oilers are close, man. They're close. This is so close. And being this close, it sucks. I also think back to 2006, the Oilers, they went on that run. They ended up losing in 7 after being down 3-1 against Carolina. I have a question for everyone watching right now. What's more painful, getting swept in the Stanley Cup Final or being down 3-1, coming back, giving everyone hope, and then losing in Game 7? I have painful, horrific memories of that series against the Carolina Hurricanes in 2006. If Edmonton ends up getting swept here, I feel like it will be less painful than if they, were down 3-1 in the series, or even if Edmonton is, if Edmonton were to rattle off 3 straight wins, they get a Game 7 in Florida and then end up losing. Like, that is just prolonging the suffering, in my opinion. If Florida's going to win this thing, do it as quickly as possible and put me out of my misery, all right? In saying that, though, the Oilers just win one. Just win one game, because you just don't know, right? You just don't know. Win one game. Mentally, hockey is one of those games where sometimes there's just a light that switches, and that's all it takes to get on a bit of a run, feel good about your game, feel good about yourself. Just win one. See if you can win Game 4. Win one game. If the Stanley Cup is awarded on Saturday, of course, I'll be very happy for the Florida Panthers, and I love seeing the Stanley Cup awards ceremony. I love watching the players skate around with it. I love hearing and watching the interviews. I'll probably be teary-eyed, by the way. I always get emotional at, different players that end up hoisting it, the storylines. I'm just so invested in the sport. So if you end up seeing me shed some tears on Saturday, if Florida were to win it on Saturday, just don't be surprised. A little heads up there. I do get emotional, and I love it though. It's the best thing ever. It's why I love this sport so much. But the Oilers win one. That's all I ask. Let's see if you can win one game. Let's see if you can make a bit of a series out of this. In terms of closing thoughts, though, not a whole lot more to discuss. I just want to thank everyone that has tuned in. If this truly is it for the Oilers, if this is it, if they end up losing 4 straight, or whenever the cup gets awarded to the Florida Panthers, which it looks likely, it's been an unbelievable run. It's been an unbelievable ride on YouTube this year. Like I said, I've only been making content since November. I have not even been making content for a year. We sailed over 3,100 subscribers last night. The support that the channel has seen has been it's blown me away. The kindness that fans from all over have shown. I just want to thank everyone for being really good sports about this. Panthers fans, you're great sports. Oilers fans, Canucks fans, Kings fans, Stars fans. I've had Leafs fans in here recently. Rangers fans, Bruins fans. Like, if you're a fan of another team, if you're neutral from these two and you do tune in regularly, I want to thank you so much. Oilers fans that have been supporting the channel all year, again, I can't thank you enough. The Stanley Cup playoffs has been something that our channel here that, I'm creating content on. I expected maybe a few hundred new subscribers. Just, realistically, the more Edmonton plays in the playoffs, I get a bit more exposure on YouTube's algorithm. Edmonton went on a big run this year. They've gone on a big run, and I've been exposed to a lot of people have been exposed to me, and I'm really glad that we're building a very positive, uplifting community, a welcoming community. Fans of other teams are always welcome here. I love the banter. I love the trash talking. It's so much fun, and I can't thank everyone enough for their support. It means the absolute world to me, so thank you, thank you, thank you. Of course, like I mentioned, the content will not stop when the Stanley Cup is handed out. There's lots to do and lots more content to discuss, because we have the draft coming up, and there's going to be free agency, and then there's going to be other things in July that I'm going to want to discuss. And then, of course, once you get towards the end of August, well, now you have training camps about to open, and then all that good stuff. So content will not end when the Stanley Cup is awarded. So if you want to be here for the ride in the future, if you want to be here and experience more content from me, make sure you hit that like button. That is super, super important. And of course, subscribe if you're not yet subscribed. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I truly appreciate it. I will see you tomorrow morning with the pregame report. And then, of course, tomorrow night for Game 4, I will be live streaming. I'll be doing live commentary and reacting once again. So thanks, everyone, once again. I'll see you all soon. Have a wonderful Friday. Enjoy the weather if it's nice. If it's rainy, enjoy your day in. And we'll see you all soon. Tell someone that you love them, all right? And just like I remind everyone, fight like Ben, fight like a kid. A lot of things out there in the world that are more important than hockey. I want the Oilers to win, but it happens, and I'm not going to let it affect me too much. So take care, everyone. Truly appreciate and love all of you. We'll see you soon.